Silverstone is arguably the most iconic track in Formula One. Yes, arguably even more iconic than the Tirunelveli GP that we spoke about last video. Yes, this year the British Grand Prix is a sprint weekend, so ideally that means less practice, more qualifying, more racing and more overtakes, right? Right? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. There are some things that I am personally not looking forward to in this weekend, but let's talk about the weekend overall in detail. Welcome to the things you need to know about the British Grand Prix. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Anderson here. We are on a roll with back-to-back races, and this being a sprint weekend, yes, we have a lot more sessions that are important to the championship. So let's get straight to the video. This video I'm going to focus a lot about understanding the track, details about the track, details about the regulations and how these regulations will do in this track, and towards the end a little bit of updates, fun updates about the weekend itself. Silverstone is the circuit where British Grand Prix happens, and it has been really iconic and it holds a very special place in Formula One for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Formula One started here, and when I mean started here, the first race for the Formula One World Championship happened in 1950, May 13th, in this specific track. Yes, Nino Farina won the first ever Formula One race in 1950 in an Alfa Romeo. Secondly, 6 out of the 11 racing teams are based out of Great Britain. What I mean by that is the factories where these cars are made are based out of Great Britain. They are in and around the circuit. Aston Martin Formula One team is actually 1 kilometer away from Silverstone. The track used to be an Air Force station which was built in the early 1940s before the World War. It was active through the World War, and after the war it was converted to a racetrack. In fact, some of the runways are still visible from the aerial view. Over the years, the track has gone through a lot of changes, especially to reduce the speed and improve safety. After 1994 specifically, the corners of Silverstone circuit have a lot of recognizable names and have been iconic. So let's take a quick look at them, and we will parallelly analyze the speeds around these corners as well. First up, we have the start straight, which is called the Hamilton Straight, named after the most famous, iconic Tony Award winning musical Hamilton. I'm kidding if you hadn't figured that out. If you don't know who Lewis Hamilton is at this point, I will recommend you go back to kindergarten and start fresh. The Hamilton Straight is also the spot in 2022 where the iconic crash of Zhou Guanyu happened, where his car was skidding literally upside down like a top. The Hamilton Straight leads into turn 1, which is called Abbey, named after the medieval monastery named Luffield Abbey. Now, this is a high-speed corner. Again, this goes straight into turn 2, which is also another high-speed corners where drivers sometimes don't even lift the throttle. Turn 2 is called Farm because there used to be a farm over there, apparently, lol. Next comes turn 3, which is the first of the braking zones in the track, and this is called Village, and I wonder why it got that name, Village. Turn 4 is the slowest corner of the track, and it is called the Loop. While this is not a hairpin at all, but it is probably the tightest corner on the track. Now, turn 5 is called Aintree, and this is where the cars start building up speed to get into the straight, and it got its name as Aintree because there was an Aintree horse race that used to happen over there. Now, turn 5 leads to Wellington Straight, and this is in reference to the Wellington bomber planes. Like I said, Silverstone used to be an Air Force base. Wellington Straight leads into turn 6, which is called the Brooklands. Now, this is also a hard braking turn, and it flows immediately into Luffield. Brooklands is the name of another London-based track, and Luffield is the same name as turn 1, Luffield Abbey, which is named after the monastery. Now, turn 8 is called Woodcote, and you need to get the exit lines very correct into the straight that leads into turn 9, which is called Copse, not corpse, okay, not dead body corpse. Copse meaning a group of trees. And this is the iconic Copse corner where the unstoppable force of Max Verstappen met the immovable object of Lewis Hamilton, and the massive crash of 2021 happened and arguably started the most intense and the most short-lived rivalry of Formula One. Max and Lewis have so much respect for each other, and arguably they are good friends now, and they might even be better friends after the racing is done. Yeah, we never got to see the best of Max versus Lewis. It just lasted for one season. Now back to the track. Copse leads into a bunch of high-speed S's. Now there are plenty of famous S's in the world. There is the Senna S's in Interlagos, there is Kota S's, but arguably the most famous, most recognizable of them, Maggots, Becketts and Chapel. Now all of these S's, there is going to be partial throttle and very little braking, which leads into a big high speed straight called the hangar straight. Now, hangar is basically a tall warehouse where planes are kept. And obviously, hangar here refers to the hangar where the aircraft and the bombers were parked when it was a military airfield. And then comes Stowe, which is turn 15. And this is iconic for its elevation because the turn is blind. You go uphill into the turn and then the track becomes downhill. Stowe leads to Vale, which is probably the second hardest and the slowest point on track. And from there, we have Club Corner, which is named after RAC's London clubhouse. From there, we start the lap all over again. Now, just like what we did for the Red Bull Ring, I have mapped the average speed around different corners to see what type of corners are there. And as you can clearly see, there is a glaring problem right there. And this is the problem which we spoke about in the last video, where Max Verstappen literally broke out laughing, saying that there is going to be a problem in the Silverstone circuit. And let's talk about exactly that. The way deployment works in this season is slightly more complicated than the previous years because the battery is close to 48% of the overall power. Batteries need to deploy energy every lap and then recharge to full as well. Deployment happens whenever there is speed needed in the track. So once the deployment is done and the battery is empty, it needs to be recharged. So in a lap, there are 3 normal ways and 1 weird way to recharge a battery. First, it is under braking, which is the most common way. Next is lift and coast. When you lift and coast, the driver is neither pressing the throttle nor the brake. This usually happens in medium speed corners and parts of the track where braking isn't too heavy. Then there is a third way, which is under partial throttle. The ECU, energy control unit of the car, identifies these partial throttle and it uses some of the energy to recharge the battery. Now, if you look at Silverstone as a whole, firstly, it has a lot of high speed corners. Some of them are even taken in full throttle. In essence, when you look at the whole track map, you see there are only 5 regions where brakes are being used. And then we have long straights, especially the ones in sector 2. So we have so many full throttle zones, high speed corners where energy is needed, and very few places where energy can be recovered in the above normal ways. Let me point out something, okay? Let's look at the map and follow closely. Okay, there is the Woodcote corner in turn 8 where you're starting to build a lot of speed. And then you don't usually brake into Copse in turn 9. It's basically you just lift off slightly. And then you have Maggots, Becketts and Chapel where you kind of lift off the throttle but you hit the brakes slightly once and then immediately you are off to the hangar straight. From turn 8 to turn 15, you literally have one small braking spot where you get to recharge a bit of energy, but the rest of that section you are fully deploying. And to be honest, by the end of the hangar straight, your car will not have even a slight ounce of battery for the rest of the lap to be completed fast. And that's exactly what we mean by the car being energy starved. There is not enough batteries left for the rest of the lap to be finished as fast as possible. I'm sure the fuel is there, the internal combustion engine will be there, but we need more than just the ice, right? We need the batteries to give a little more speed. And now I mentioned there were 3 normal ways and 1 weird way to recharge, right? Now that's where the weird way comes into picture. The weird way is called super clipping. Super clipping is when the car is in full throttle, but instead of the energy being used to get the maximum speed out of the car, some of the internal combustion engine's energy is used to recharge the batteries instead. So when the driver is literally pushing flat out, pedal to the metal, throttle is full, you will hear the speed suddenly drop towards the end and the noise pitch of the engine slowing down because the fuel and the internal combustion's energy is being used to recharge the batteries instead. This has been the biggest problem of the current regulations, and this problem makes itself very evident especially in traditional circuits like Albert Park in Australia or Suzuka in Japan and now Silverstone in Great Britain. So why am I discussing this in advance? Because I want you to prep you as you go into the weekend. This is what you're going to expect. And you're going to hear a lot about super clipping and you're going to hear different people's opinions about super clipping, and most of them don't know the full information. So here is my stance, okay? My stance on all of this has been very clear. Do I like the fact that the regulations are not fully baked in? No, I don't. Do I like the fact that the regulations keep changing and FIA is fiddling with it so much? No, I don't. But the problem has never been the electrical energy in itself. The problem has never been the battery. Battery technology is kind of the future of the sport and the future of road cars as well. EVs are everywhere. Formula One has to be this pinnacle of technology. Only if there is commercial use for the technology, tech companies and automotive companies will find Formula One useful and invest millions of dollars in research and technology. This hybrid technology today is the reason why Formula One is exciting for a lot of technology companies and a lot of new engine manufacturers and a lot of new teams that want to enter the sport. And I know some people will definitely say stuff like, oh, F1 is becoming more like Formula E and Formula One should always be about racing and it should not be about battery management. If Formula One should always be about pure wheel-to-wheel racing, then why do we have tire management? Why doesn't Pirelli make tires that last a full race? Why does a Formula One team and a driver have to manage tires and do pit stops? Why isn't Formula One race from start to finish a driver and a car race? Why is there pit stops and why does the teams have to get involved? We can also ask all sorts of questions like this. Formula One has always been about automotive technology. Formula One weekends are usually a place where a bunch of CEOs and tech CEOs and investors and rich people hang out over business conversations over a cup of coffee or a tea or a meal or whatever, and in between there is a race that happens. Unlike cricket or football, where quite a lot of tactics are basically player skill and strategies, Formula One is a lot to do with technology, and most of it is proprietary technology as well, which means it is not accessible to the public. So with whatever half data that we have to make inferences. And let us be very clear, I am not defending the regulations, I am not defending the FIA, I am just trying to make sense of the solutions that are being presented to us. And mark my words, without battery technology, there will be plenty of F1 fans like you and me who would love to watch Formula One, but there will be no automotive companies that will be willing to invest millions of dollars into this sport because the technology is old school and it is no longer relevant for them or for their companies to invest in. Okay, sorry about that rant, but this is what it is. Here we are. This is how we are getting into Silverstone this weekend. The track has a lot of high-speed corners, but very low medium-speed corners where the drivers can recharge efficiently with other forms, so there will be a lot of super clipping. Other than that, the weekend is a sprint weekend, which means there are more points up for grabs. Last year we had a wet race and what a mess it was, and we had Hülkenberg's first podium as well after 239 races. This year it is going to be sunny. Red Bull are coming in hot with a broadly successful Austrian GP, if you want to consider one podium a success. Mercedes on paper are the better team here, suited for the circuit. If we were to take what happened in Australia and Japan as a reference, as they can be considered as similar circuits, Mercedes power unit and its deployment is the best on the grid, no questioning that. But Ferrari is bringing in some aero upgrades to the McLaren wing, new diffuser, etc. They seem to have unlimited money in the cost cap era, as per Toto at least. We also have some special liveries that are being revealed. McLaren's first ever car in Formula One, M2B. That was a silver car with a green British racing stripe in the middle, and the MCL40 is inspired by that. This is one of the most beautiful liveries that I have seen in a while. I know McLaren did a very shitty job of their 1000th Grand Prix livery. You heard me say that I did not like that livery and I'm not a big fan of it. I thought it didn't stand out enough. Well, here we are, few days in, and McLaren really figured out how to stand out here, and this is one of the most beautiful liveries I've ever seen. But they are probably not going to be the best livery on the grid. Why? Because Cadillac is coming in clutch with a July 4th American Independence Day inspired livery. Yes, they are here to show the British who is boss, and I hope their weekend goes better than last week and their cars last more than 4 laps this race. But their Independence Day inspired red, white and blue colored livery looks epic. There will be plenty of other things to discuss, like rumors and updates and my own predictions for the sprint and the race, so I don't want to do all of that in one single video, so stay subscribed. I will be back with the weekend preview and my predictions in the next video. Okay, see you all. Let's aim to hit 10k by August. That seems like a reasonable goal, so if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I will be up almost every day with a video. Okay, thank you guys, see you, bye.